All right, you guys ready?
Testing, testing.
Ready to get started? All right. Well, good morning, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, Lake Point Live. Glad you guys can join us here. So I've got some friends here with me today on stage. So before I introduce them, today what I want to talk about is two things. One, there's a lot of fun stuff that's starting this fall. And so we want to talk about some of those things as it relates to not just adults, but really more focused on some of the stuff happening with kids. And then second, the idea of church as a family affair. So let's introduce you guys. So good sir right here. What's your name and what grade are you in?
My name's Charlie Lowe. I'm in 3rd grade.
Thank you, Charlie. And how about you?
My name is Max, and I'm in 5th grade.
Excellent. And how about you?
Welcome. My name is Lydia. I'm in 5th grade.
So if you haven't guessed, these are 3 of my children, and wanted them to join me here on stage. So first, let's talk about some of the stuff that's happening for kids and what's going on in your lives this fall. Both in general, fall's sort of a time a lot of new things start with the school year and everything. So maybe reverse order, Lydia, what sort of for you started up this fall? What are you excited about?
I'm on a soccer team. I'm on a
Soccer
cheer
team.
squad. And,
Cheer, nice.
Level up.
And level up, awesome. And how about you, Max?
I just made a new soccer team, and I'm in Level Up.
Nice, awesome. And Charlie, how about you?
I joined a soccer team this fall.
Nice. So a lot of soccer in our house, clearly. But a lot of cool things as well. So both Max and Lydia mentioned Level Up. And so I'm going to let them tell you guys a little bit about what that is. So maybe Lydia first. Who comes to Level Up? Max, why don't you tell us who comes to Level Up?
The 5th and 6th graders.
Okay, so is it part of the doc?
No.
No, it's not. Okay, and Lydia, why don't you tell us what you guys do at Level Up?
So it's a lot like the doc, but we kind of go more into it, a little bit more like grown up sort of way of teaching it, and then we come in here for worship and to sing songs, and then we go in a room and yeah.
Nice. And Max, anything else you want to add about what you guys do at Level Up?
We would also go in here. We would also go in here and on Wednesday nights and do a bunch of just stuff, and then eventually we would play a game until parents come to pick.
Nice. So it's not just Sundays. You guys meet up then on Wednesday nights. So Lydia, you might say it's like the doc, but leveled up.
Dad joke.
They didn't want me to make that joke, but I couldn't help myself. So one of the cool things about Level Up is there's this, when you get into 5th grade, 6th grade, you're really not kind of in with the elementary kids anymore, but not quite in the older middle school, high school age. And so Lake Point started up this year, 5th and 6th graders coming together and doing their sort of own thing. And it's sort of a step between the doc and collision for the older high school students. So it's been a lot of fun. Max and Lydia have really enjoyed it. Last thing I sort of wanted to talk about and why I brought some of these guys. Can you, maybe Charlie, you tell us what did we start at our house just this last week?
We started a missional community.
Missional community. Thanks for the tip, Max. And what is a missional community? Or what do you do during our missional community?
Pretty much just play with the kids that moms or dads are part of missional community.
Nice. And Max, how many people would you say came to our missional community? Humans.
18.
18. And were there more kids or more adults?
There were more kids, obviously.
So we actually were outnumbered 2-to-1 children to adults. 12 kids, 6 adults on Friday. That'll even out when some of the other families join. And I know that's a little unique for our missional community, but we've got a bunch of young families, which is really cool. It's a missional community. It's a way for people to get together outside of the building, outside of church, and do life together, connect to Jesus. And what I wanted to emphasize is it's not just an adult thing. It's a whole family thing. So it's families coming together because you live life as a family. You don't just live life as an individual Christian. You're with your family. And so we've got all these different families that come. And on that same note here, sort of last thing, Lydia, do you want to tell me maybe one or two of your good friends, or a few of your good friends that come to Lake Point?
A lot. Emma, Lena, Emery, Leon, Liza.
Okay, so Emma, Melina, Emery, and a couple cousins too as well. Nice. Max, how about you? What's a couple good friends that you have here at Lake Point?
Liam, Emma, and yeah.
That works. So you got a couple good friends there in Level Up. And Charlie, how about you?
One of my friends is Ben.
All right, well, we got to wrap it up, the bands here, but what I wanted to show is these guys have some really good friends here at church that they also see at school and also see at missional community, and I think that's a really cool thing for them to develop those friendships at church that then they also see in real life, at school, outside of church. So thank you guys so much for joining us, and why don't you let's all say goodbye, and we'll take down this table and let the band get started. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the service.
Good morning, Lake Point. Come on now, Lake Point. Let's make this the prayer of our hearts this morning, okay? Sing with me. For I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You've been so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. Yes, you did. You've been so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. How it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You've been so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You've been so kind to me. Come on now. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Come on now. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it.
Church. We're so glad to have you here with us today. At Lake Point, we're all about helping people connect to Jesus in their everyday lives. And so one of the best ways you can do that is just by looking around the room, whether you're worshiping with us online, your room, or here in person, and saying hi to them. Maybe ask, are you going to be hanging out with the Packers this afternoon or picking pumpkins? So let's do that for 60 seconds right now. Well, baptism service, that is one of my favorite Sundays of the year because it just reminds us that connecting with Jesus and your journey with him is really at the core of all that we do here at Lake Point. And we can do that in relationship because we know this journey is not meant to live alone. And one way you can take a next step in building relationships is just stopping by our Connect bar, or if you're online, stopping at our digital Connect page. It allows you to share prayer requests. It allows you to share a little bit of contact information about yourself. There's also the Starting Point experience and missional communities right on that Connect page. So any place, if you're looking to engage, that's where you want to head. So we encourage you to do that. Also coming up, for any moms here at Lake Point, we have a moms event happening October 22nd. Once a mom, always a mom. So this event is meant for moms of every age, but it's just going to be a time for us to get together in person, connect through some great teaching simulcast, and it's just a short Friday night event. So please check that out. Invite a friend, maybe another mom in your circle of community who could use some encouragement. We'd love to have you part of that. And finally, maybe some of you were here for worship night last Wednesday. Man, it was just a great time to unplug, pray, just get out of the mundane. It just reminded me how important quiet and solitude and worship through music can be. And so one of the things that we're allowed, or one of the ways we get to do great events like that is through your generosity. And so if Lake Point is your church, thank you for your continued generosity. You can continue to give online and in the box between the two doors on your way out. But would you pray with me now as we just thank God for what he's done for us? God, we just come before you so humble on a Sunday morning. The fact that we get together in person or that we have the technology to meet online, we're just so thankful for all of the resources you've blessed us with. And we just want to acknowledge that you are the owner of all things. And God, as you lead, we just give back to you as our form of worship. And we just worship you today through our giving. and through our lives, that we are just living out an act of worship as your people, as your children, so deeply loved. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Would you now stand up as we worship one more time through song?
I've lived stories that have proved your faithfulness. I've seen miracles my mind can comprehend. There is beauty in what I can't understand. Jesus, it's you. Jesus, it's you. And I believe you're the wonder-working God. You're the wonder-working God. All the miracles I've seen, you're too good to not believe. You're the wonder-working God, and you heal because you love. All the miracles we'll see, you're too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. And I can't resurrect a man with my own hands, but just the mention of your name can raise the dead. So all the glory to the only one who can. Jesus, it's you. Jesus, it's you. And I believe you're the wonder-working God. You're the wonder-working God. All the miracles I've seen, you're too good to not believe. You're the wonder-working God, and you heal because you love. All the miracles we'll see, you're too good to not believe. You're the wonder-working God. You're the wonder-working God. All the miracles I've seen, you're too good to not believe. You're the wonder-working God, and you heal because you love. All the miracles we'll see, you're too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. After everything we've seen, you're too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. After everything we've seen, you're too good to not believe. Hey, come on, you sing. We've seen cancer disappear. We've seen broken bodies healed. Don't you tell me he can't do it. Don't you tell me he can't do it. We've seen real life resurrection. We've seen mental health restored. Don't you tell me he can't do it. Don't you tell me he can't do it. We've seen families reunited. We've seen prodigals a church full of faith. And I believe you're the wonder-working God. You're the wonder-working God. All the miracles I've seen. Come on, sing it. You're the wonder-working God. And you heal because you love. All the miracles we'll see. You're too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. After everything we've seen, you're too good to not believe.
I think that's why a lot of us are here today, is because we're looking for something from God. I've kind of got to the point of saying it's not in me, it's not in the next person, it's not in what everyone else turns to. If I don't got this thing called God in my life, something's missing. And whether you are here searching, trying to figure out who that is, or you've known him for a while and you just came to say thank you today, I'm thankful that you're here. So go ahead and grab a seat. Glad to have all of you here at Lake Point Church this morning. I was actually having like a moment this past Friday when I was hanging out over desserts and coffee with two people I've called friends. They're old enough to be my folks, but I call them friends, and from this church. And it made me think of how my boys got friends at this church and from school, and now they're kind of one and the same. And how I had friends at this church when we were a family with young kids and didn't know anyone else in the community, and now we got families we journey with when we're kind of like in the middle stages of life. And just where else do you get that of every single generation and a person for every person? That's the family of God. And I don't know, I was feeling a little sappy on you today, so I thought I'd tell you. Has nothing to do with my sermon. All right, here's where I am at with the sermon today. We're wrapping up a series that we've titled Loose Ends, and I hope it's done something for your discipleship journey with Jesus. Cammie really illustrated it perfectly right back at the first Sunday when we were talking about it. Whereas this pandemic kind of cruised through, it cut our ties to every semblance of normal we seemingly had. And it's like all these different aspects of life are kind of floating out there and floating away in many instances. And it's time to tie it down to Jesus. A moment of crisis and uncertainty ought to get us to tie our things back to God more than ever. And quite frankly, I'm not seeing it happen. That's no judgment on you or any person. It's just me looking at the context, me looking at the church as a whole, like the worldwide church, and yeah, even this church as a whole. Like, I just didn't see the moment of crisis push us back into a deeper tie with Jesus. And that concerns me. And so we did whatever you do when you see something out of line with God's plan. You go back to Jesus. And we got great stories of Jesus, and particularly we went to Mark chapter 11 and 12. It's just this 2-chapter window where Jesus shows up to really assert his authority in people's lives, to say, I'm the king. All power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. It's mine. And so then he takes to getting into, whether directly or indirectly, he's taking on the authority of people's time, people's tasks, people's prayers, people's purpose, their priorities, preferences. It all goes back to there is a king, and we all bow before him, tying those loose ends back to him. And today, the last loose end we are going to talk about tying down to Jesus is our money. Now, I know when I say that, a bunch of you are like, shoot, I just showed up on that Sunday, right? Like, I know churches got to do that every now and then. Pastors got to throw that in like at least once a year, right? But really, the one Sunday I choose to come, even on a kind of rainy-ish day, you told me I showed up on Money Sunday. And now I'm stuck here, right? And they're like, well, first of all, I'm sorry for you. No, I'm not, okay? So here's why, all right? First of all, I don't think it's going to come out as that kind of talk, okay? Secondly, I don't know how we avoid this. When you say we're going to teach these 2 chapters of the Bible, you teach what's in there. And I don't get to decide what Jesus wants to talk about, and you don't either. So if we're really going to get into what God says, you just got to listen. But third and finally, doesn't it feel like money's a loose end right now? Doesn't it feel like now's the time to be talking about it. As this pandemic's gone through, income sources have changed for a lot of us. Spending patterns have definitely wildly changed in a lot of places. Job environments have shifted. The climate of small businesses have been upturned. And on top of that, the federal government keeps pumping $2 trillion a pop into stimulating the economy. And you know what? It worked. Like last year when my family vacation got canceled, and after that, the president of the United States sends me a check on top of that. You're for darn sure Brian Hoffmeister spent money on stuff that he normally wouldn't spend money on. Don't look at me with that judgmental kind of look. Like, did anyone else not do that, right? Like, money's changing. It's a looser end than before. And just like every other little thing that we got in this everyday life and our everyday relationships, it's got to get tied back down to Jesus. And right here in this 2-chapter section, Jesus talks about money, not once, but twice. So here we go. Two stories today about money from Jesus. This first one here starts in verse 13. It says, later, I don't know why I said it that way. Later they sent some of the Pharisees and the Herodians to Jesus to catch him in his words. They came to him and said, "Teacher, we know that you are a man of integrity. You aren't swayed by others, because you pay no attention to who they are, but you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. So, is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not?" Caesar's the emperor. Caesar's the top of the food chain. Caesar is the federal government. Okay? Should we pay or shouldn't we? But Jesus knew their hypocrisy. "Why are you trying to trap me?" he asked. "Bring me a denarius and let me look at it." They brought the coin, and he asked them, "Whose image is this and whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. Then Jesus said to them, "Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's." And they were amazed at him. That means their mouth was shut. They had nothing left to say afterwards. All right, so let's break this down a little bit. Go all the way back to verse 13. Put that on the screen, please. You got two parties here, Pharisees and Herodians. These, for oversimplified terms, the Pharisees are the religious leaders. The Herodians are the municipality leaders. Normally, these two do not form a team. Normally, these two do not even form a conversation. One's doing their thing over here, one's doing their thing there. But today, they're like working together against a common issue, and that's Jesus. They cannot figure out how they are losing to this guy. Jesus comes in riding on a donkey, clearing the temple like it's his, going toes to toes on argumentative issues and winning every time. And they're like, we don't know why we're losing to this guy, so we need to form the two think tanks, bring any mind who cares about this, and come up with a plan where we can trap him. Okay, here's how to best relate it. I coach one of my boys in basketball, and there was one time we were losing to a team that we had no business losing to. Not only that, we were losing to a player we had no business losing to. This was summer league basketball, and this one kid shows up late to the game in his swim trunks. It's like mom's like, "Shoot, son, we forgot the game. Get in the car right now." Didn't even bother changing the drawers. Shows up at the game, and to be frank about, the kid didn't look like an athlete. Like, there are 20 kids out there. There's like one kid who is like the lowest level athlete, and it's dude with the swim trunks. And on this day, he can't miss. He does this one shot that's like over here. I don't think he saw the basketball hoop. He's shooting a three-pointer, and it looks more like he's doing a shot put because he's just got no arm strength. And he's making all of them. And we are down bad to a team that no one should be losing to. You know what that halftime talk was like? Man, my assistant's like, "The kid's trunks aren't even dry, and he's still beating you. You can't lose to someone like this. Get out there, second half." That's what's going on in this story. This is the halftime pep talk. They got all these different groups together and saying, if you're going to lose to someone, it can't be the dude with the donkey who runs around with 12 guys in sandals. There's no war horse. There's no keys to the temple. And someone tell me how we can finally trap this guy and win the game. Coming out of the halftime pep talk, here's what they got. Verse 14 is the trap. And the trap essentially is, are you going to be anti-patriot by saying, yeah, just go along with Roman oppression and submit to the tax? Or are you going to side with the people and say, oh, yeah, we got to get free from Rome, and then you end up in jail? Is there a win for Jesus in here? Not a chance. And they think they got him. Now, here's the fun part. Jesus puts the argument to rest without even arguing it. All right, the coin is a silver denarius. It's worth a day's wages in that time. That's the imperial tax. I don't have a denarius with me, but I do got a quarter. And we got good old GW on my quarter, and it says, in God we trust. Now, in those days, very similar to ours, the images of leadership were on there, and it seems to me, I'm no Roman historian, but what they would do is, it seems like every Caesar there was, every emperor, would reprint the coins with his face and his image on it. Okay, and so right now, the silver denarius that would be held up would have the words on it, Tiberius Caesar Augustus. Tiberius being his first name, Caesar being his grandfather's name, the first man to become emperor, and Augustus being a title that his dad chose for himself. It means illustrious. So it's all right there. Tiberius Caesar Augustus, and it also said, son of the divine Augustus. My dad was God. I am the son of God. Therefore, I am God. This is all on the coin. And on top of that, as if that wasn't enough, the flip side of it had a picture of his mother, Olivia, and the words high priest. Isn't that cute? Put mom on that's a kid with mommy issues, right? Like, come on now. So what he's saying is, I'm God, and the best way to know about who God is to go talk to my mama. That's the coin. And for a true blue Jew who's following the 10 Commandments, this is a graven image. This is idolatry. This, by conscience and by faith, you can have no participation with this coin. Maybe once a year you went and scrapped together some of your copper coins. That's what the Jews ended up using, a whole different currency system, because they couldn't in good conscience carry it, except they had to once a year go figure out how to get one, pay the tax, and be done with it. You just got rid of it as dirty money as quickly as you could. You couldn't carry the idolatry around you. And so here's Jesus now. Fellas, shoot! I left my denarius at home. I got nothing in my pocket. Hey, can I borrow yours? And one of them pulls it out. Oh, you got the idolatry coin in your pocket. You guys are wondering about whether I'm the complicit, anti-patriot, idolatrous image, carrying pagan leadership conformer by carrying a denarius on me and paying a tax. You're the ones who's got it in your pocket. Thank you for producing that. Game over. Jesus is just so smart, okay? This is witty. Like, I think sometimes you're worried that if I believe in Jesus, I'm just like one of those faith people where we're less researched or less intelligent and we'd have fewer built-up arguments, and it's just got to be like, well, I believe. I got this thing called faith. Now, if Jesus was here, he'd have words to exchange by which people would be amazed when they're done, like it said in the text. But here's what's also great about Jesus. He does not leave it there. He's not just trying to win arguments to win arguments. He pushes it back to the point. He says, guys, listen, you're trying to do this thing where to be pro-God, you got to be against the other thing. I'm telling you the two can go together. Give Caesar what's Caesar's. Give God what's God's. It's elaborated further in Romans 13 or 1 Peter 2 that there is no authority, not even a pagan authority above us, that is not there on place under God's authority. And so it don't matter if you voted for your mayor, your governor, or your president. You owe them respect and prayer. All those people get that from us. That's not the point of today. That's just a side one. And I think a lot of us need to take that in a little bit. Story number 1, Mark verse 17, though, about giving Caesar to Caesar and to God what is God's, because we're going to come back to it. Second story now. As he taught, Jesus said, watch out for the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes and be greeted with respect in the marketplaces, and having the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honor in the banquets. They devour the widows' houses, and for a show they make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely. Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins, worth only a few cents. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, the poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything she had to live on." And that, interestingly enough, is the last public speech that Jesus makes. From here, it's all shift to private conversations with his disciples. But as far as a crowd is concerned, of both the curious and the skeptics and what they get to listen in on, that's the one he wants to leave them listening to. Listen to the story of the widow. And as we get into it today, kind of hold it with that same weight. Like if Jesus had one more public speech to both the skeptics and the curious, what would he want them to hold on to? He'd want them to hold on to this story. All right, first he sets it up with saying, watch out for the teachers of the law, back in verse 38. And some of them like to walk around in these flowing robes. They were a little into dressing the part. And then it goes on to say, verse 39, they wanted the most important seats in the synagogue, like kind of like us. We got chairs here, chairs on the side. Well, they had chairs up front too. And who gets the chair up front? The person who's going to teach. Particularly, whoever is the teacher of rank that day gets the most important seat, front and center. It was practical. They were going to step forward and they were going to teach whoever gathered. But then it became kind of an image and show sort of thing. I want that seat. And if I'm a teacher of the law, maybe if I come at 7 o'clock on a Friday night during prime time, maybe I'm going to get stuck on the side. But hey, if I show up Tuesday afternoon at 2, I get best seat number 1. And whoever comes there that day, they get to hear me teach. And I got the seat. They're just putting on a show with it. They devour widows' houses. Somehow they were using their influence to either get legal non-representation for widows, or maybe it was even religious manipulation. They make a show of lengthy prayers. At the end of the day, it was the lack of genuine authenticity. These men are just playing games with God, trying to look the part. It's just games and shows to them. And Jesus throws in, these men will be punished most severely. That's the backdrop. That sets the contrast to now. Let's go over and look at the story of the widow. Now these stories didn't happen like necessarily right back to back, but also what our scriptures do, Mark puts them back to back on purpose. Like now that backdrop is set, let me by contrast show you what this widow was like. Okay, verse 41, Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins. Okay, so first of all, you got a picture. People can gather and watch this. I'll explain that a little bit. And it's very obvious to them as they watch who's giving a large amount, and in this case also who's given a very small amount. Specifically, the word used in the text here is that this woman gives 2 lepta. Somebody say lepta. All right, how about we all do it? All right, on 3, lepta. 1, 2, 3. Now, is it important that you know it's the name lepta? No, it's just fun to say. So now we're all having a good time in church, so I wanted you to go there. She puts in her 2 small lepta. They're about 1 centimeter wide each. If the denarius was worth a day's wages, the lepta is worth 1/100th of a day's wages. It's like this is the equivalent of a 6-minute paycheck that she's carrying. That's all she's got left. Now, I want to get you in the setting of this, and I was really having a hard time giving you the picture, okay? I do what I always do, like when I need a source of great biblical insight to get your minds going. I went to the Google machine this week, and unfortunately, this is all I got for a picture, right? Or just different angles of it. She's put in some things in the shofar chest. Someone say shofar. All right, you're doing good. You're all on a roll today. And the problem is, I don't even think this is an accurate representation of a shofar. So, like, here's what a shofar actually is. It's a ram's horn. And a shofar chest, what it would be connected, the shofar to the chest, and the security reasons are obvious. Ain't no one going to walk by and snitch from a shofar chest. You can't get your hand in and out and keep going, right? So this was security. And in this space in the temple court, there were 13 different shofar chests. And people could walk up. There was one or two of them that were obligatory, not obligatory to a widow. But then there were these others where the boxes were designated for something. If you wanted to give to this, you went to that shofar chest. If you wanted to give to that, you went to that shofar chest. And it was all voluntary. It was all above and beyond any sort of requirement. And so here's what's fun. In verse 41, it says that Jesus sat down and watched this thing, right? He's just showing up to see. And this is actually how it worked, where it was in a public space where people are walking in. There's no private boxes or envelopes or anything like that. And people, I guess, without anything better to do, would kind of like watch, like, okay, there's the have to box over there. But over here, we have the only if you really, really want to box. And it was just kind of interesting to watch to see who would come by and give something to the I really, really want to box. It was entertainment. And Jesus grabs himself a seat to watch that day. Now, it wasn't just watching. You could hear what was going on, because before you would put your money in the shofar chest, you'd have to present your gift to the priest. He would inspect the currency. He would go back to the Old Testament law, if need be, to see, did this match what your intent is? What do you really want this money to go towards? And after all that conversation happened, it wasn't broadcasted, but it was close enough that any bystander there could hear, this person is giving this much money with that intent just because they want to. Again, the entertainment value goes up. And if that wasn't enough, you can hear what's taking place. Like, let's just say with the widow, it's like, all right, I'm not even going to take up time on this line of ledger. This kind of gift ain't even worth it. You could still hear it, because imagine if you put coins in, put my shofar chest back up there, or at least the shofar. Yeah, what kind of sound do you think it made? Dropping coins down a swirling pipe like that, and then it hits the bottom. This is how they know. Some are giving large gifts, and others are small. So, like, just. Hey, my shofar chest, but this is going to work, right? Like, you're listening, you're watching, and all of a sudden, right? And then after that, do you hear the difference? And so there's Jesus taking this all in. People are gathered around watching like they always do. People can hear the conversation with the priest. And then people hear the coins go in and know that this woman just gave the equivalent of 2 centimeters of scrap metal, whatever that does at the salvage yard. That's what she gave. And now inside this setting, here comes the lesson from Jesus. The challenge, really. Verse 42 says, but a poor widow. And not to pretend like I'm smart, but I actually think the NIV translates it poorly. There's a word in here called Mia. Somebody say Mia. Yeah, you're just on a roll today. Mia, it means one. Or more specifically, it often gets translated only one. There is actually no in Greek. There's no indirect article. It's either the or it's not there. And they took this word only, like only one. In contrast to all these other religious people putting on the show and wearing the garments and then doing the seats back here, and in contrast to all the large gifts that I could watch and hear this day, in contrast to all that, I want one story for you to look at, and here she is. Verse 43, calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on. First, what this doesn't say. God doesn't hate people with money. He doesn't dislike you if you have money. The issue at hand is sincere generosity, and you can be sincerely generous and legitimately wealthy at the same time. So sometimes people have bend this the wrong way, and that's not where this goes. Also, this is not saying that every little bit counts. I've also seen this text bent in that way as well. Don't despise the widow's mite. So like whatever you and your cheap self wants to drop in as a tiny monetary amount, that must be awesome to Jesus. No, sometimes we can just be cheap. Okay? And third, I think it's also important to point out that he's not asking us to go broke. That's not there. And it's hard when you see a great positive example, a woman who is now officially broke. Her net worth is 0 now after this moment. And Jesus also talks to the rich young ruler to say, hey, if you really want to follow me, lay it all down, then you can follow. Now, those texts are designed to say you ought to live like God owns everything. There's so many different ways we could push this into an application today. And I'll give you some of the traditional ones. This is the time usually where pastors start talking about tithing. If you're not familiar with it, it's an Old Testament thing. It's kind of interesting that a pastor would lean super, super heavily into an Old Testament stuff where we don't spend that much time there. But back then it was you were supposed to give 10% of your income right off the top. A true teaching of it, though, is it didn't stop there. Every third year, you did another 10%, so you're up to 20 on that year, and there's offerings on top of it. So really, the biblical tithing ain't 10%. It's more like 12 to 30%, depending on the year you're at and what you're going through, okay? So we could go there. Or we could go over to New Testament giving, because that's different, and pastors talk about that, where, man, they just responded to the need. They were just moved by the fact that we got to start the next church, and we got to take care of the next widow, and we got to make sure that the next preacher gets funded. And so whatever it took to fill the need, they took the lid off of the percentage idea, and it was just whatever it takes to move the kingdom of God. Now, let's just welcome a stranger, and they would open their lives with it too. Hospitality went with their generosity, and we could go there. Or I guess a third way to be generous, we could do it the American way. I looked it up. The average American gives away 2.1% of their income to charitable giving. I don't know about you, but that number sounded higher than I thought it was going to be. So God bless America. I was that sounds like we're doing pretty good. What do you think the average Christian America gives to their local church? Do we do better? We do. We give, the average Christian American gives 2.5% of their income to their local church. So washed by the blood of Jesus and my treasure is in heaven, that qualitatively comes out to 0.4 of a percentage heart change right there. I don't know whether to laugh or cry, but I just thought I'd share the stat with you. But here in this text, there's a fourth way. It goes way beyond American giving, even goes beyond Old Testament giving, and it keeps going past, dare I even say, past New Testament giving, at least in the way that we teach it. The story of the widow's example, the fourth way to give is to give it all. You just give it all. And I'm not saying you got to go broke, and then again, I think I am also saying that you are to live like every single dollar you have and every single asset you own ultimately belongs fully, 100%, no questions asked, to Jesus. You live that way because it does. It belongs to him, and so a full worship is to give it back to him, and a true discipleship lays it all down along the way. Back to the coin, right? Verse 17. Let's get that one back up there. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. So, just saying, pay your taxes. Never cheat on your taxes. Just saying, pay your bills. Just because We Energy ain't going to shut your heat off till April now, and because you got a rent abatement, that doesn't mean you don't pay it. You pay it, because that's what they're owed. You pay off your debts, whether you owe a bank or a credit card or your mother. You pay her back too, okay? You pay your school fees, your sports fees, your resort fees, your greens fees, your car payments, your cable bills, your Amazon shipments, your shoes. But in the middle of that, you just got to wait at some point. Just stop and ask, have we given to God what is God's? Give it to Caesar what's Caesar. The man's image is on it. Give it back. But whose image is written on your life? And if God put his image on you, then you go back to him. All of it. Your whole life. And in that regard, that's why this has nothing to do with money. Because we're talking about all of you. But because we're talking about all of you, it very much is talking about your money. Mark 8:34, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. When you're carrying that burden out with Jesus, don't you think a financial burden might go along with it? Or the next line later, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and the gospel will save it. If you're going to lose for Jesus, think you might be on the losing end financially sometimes? Or like in the course of laying it all down, what do you think the last thing is, that possibly the hardest thing is that might get in our way, but before we really laid it all down for Jesus? Jesus calls it like it is in Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters. Either you'll hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. And so I just get back in the story with me for a second, okay? Right? Back out of our world, back into hers, and here's Jesus just watching as this woman comes up. And it doesn't take a big cultural commentator to figure out what this woman's going through. She's a widow, that's obvious. Her life partner's gone. I don't know if it's recent or it's been a long time. I don't know if he was sick for a while or if it was sudden in an accident, whether they have a great relationship or kind of a relationship. But that was her life partner. And he's gone. And that hurts. She's in grief, and Jesus is walking her, walk up. And it's not just the husband. The kids aren't in the picture, because no one lets mom go broke on their watch, right? So either the kids don't care, or the kids were never there in the first place. Maybe she had a fertility issue. Maybe she had decades of praying, Jesus, I just want a kid. I'd love him so much if you just gave me that one little. And the prayer was never answered. And that void sat in her life for a long time. And then you talk the money thing. I don't know if she had money at one point and now she's lost it or never had it in the first place. Or maybe these religious leaders that are surrounded this whole scene, the ones that they talked about, they've taken money from widows. Maybe she was the one that got taken from, pushed around, manipulated. Maybe she's broke because of the people in the room that day, right there in the courtyard. But still, she's walking forward. Jesus leaned forward, like, watch this. Guys, watch this one. And at this point, I'd be worried. I'd be worried she's about to shake these two left right back in Jesus' face and before God. God, you weren't there for me when I lost my husband. You weren't there for me when I needed kids. You weren't there for me when my finances were being drained down to two left on. So I'm going to hold on to these two, and I'm going to make a show of the fact that this is all you left me with, God. And it hurts. She did. It's like you can't take anything away from someone who has already given it all. And I don't know how many years it took her to get there, or how many decades of, Jesus, my husband's yours. He's in your hands. And my prayer for my kids who aren't here right now or were never here in the first place, I'm leaving that with you too. And the money that I used to have, the money that I never had, the money that I don't even have the money that I have right now. This is it. So God, now I'm done. Now you have it all. And I imagine she put those two little lepta in with a smile on her face. Because it wasn't when those 2 coins hit the bottom of the chest that she had given her all. Her heart was there long before this. This is not a budgetary moment that you and I just got to read about. This is not an obligation. This is not a tradition. This is not a following the crowd. This is a spiritual moment of, I'm there. I'm really there. God, everything you have, everything I have is yours. Through the years that it may have taken tears to get there, prayers that asked for different, but to embrace this moment of truly, it's all yours. Don't just give God your percentage. Some of us been checking that box for a long time. It's time for the lid to come off. Don't just give God a generous year-end gift. Like somehow the excess you have on a good year is what he was looking for. Don't just give God a first-time gift to say you started. Don't just set up a recurring gift just to be like, all right, God, now I'm regular now and I promise. To live in worship is to live to give God your all. Verse 44, everyone gave out of their wealth, what they could spare, the excess they had, what was left over. But one, just one poor widow as the example, out of her poverty, put in everything she had to live on. You live your life like God gets everything you have to live on, because it started with him in the first place. Jesus, I don't know what needs to take place in our hearts or in our finances, but I know what needs to take place in our worship, where you are everything to us, because you are. Nothing in this world compares. Gather up our stories of hurt, baggage, fear, and worry, and know you get all of us. Whatever it takes to take our hearts fully there, we welcome you for your glory. Amen.
Why don't you stand up? We're going to sing one more time. I believe you're the wonder-working God. You're the wonder-working God. All the miracles I've seen, you were too good to not believe. You're the wonder-working God, and you heal because you love. All the miracles we'll see, you're too good to not believe. You're the wonder-working God. You're the wonder-working God. All the miracles we'll see, you're too good to not believe. You're the wonder-working God. You heal because you love. All the miracles we'll see, you're too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. After everything I've seen, you're too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. Too good to not believe. After everything I've seen, you're too good to not believe.
Quick psalm for you on your way out. It's the 145th. The Lord is good to all. He has compassion on all he has made. All your works praise you, Lord. Your faithful people extol you. They tell of the glory of your kingdom and speak of your might, so that all people may know your mighty acts and the glorious splendor of your kingdom. Thanks for joining us here at Lake Point. Have a great afternoon, and God bless.